All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling cryptocurrency price predictions. Can we really use AI to figure out where Bitcoin and all the other cryptos are going? We've got this research paper. It's forecasting cryptocurrency prices using LSTM, GRU, and Bi-Directional LSTM, a deep learning approach. It was published in Fractal and Fractional earlier this year.
Yeah, it's a pretty dense paper, but it gets right to the heart of the matter, the question that everyone's asking, can we really predict these big crypto swings? And if we can, how?
Exactly, and let's face it, the potential for gains or losses, it's huge, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone wants a crystal ball, basically. This paper focuses on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. Three of the, well, I guess you could say the biggest players in the game. But before we get into all the AI stuff, can you remind me why these digital currencies are so volatile? I mean, I know it's decentralized and all that, supply and demand, but what makes the prices swing so wildly?
Well, think about it this way. Traditional currencies, they have governments, central banks, all trying to keep them stable. But crypto, it's like, well, it's the Wild West. News, hype online, even just a tweet from, you-know-who can make prices go crazy. That's part of what makes it exciting, but it's also what makes it so hard to predict.
Okay, so that unpredictability, it's the thrill and the headache, I get it. Now, deep learning, I know that it involves training computers with tons of data, but how does that actually work for predicting something as, well, unpredictable as crypto?
That's where these LSTM, GRU, and Bi-LSTM models come in. Think of them like really powerful pattern detectors. They sift through years and years of price data, trying to find signals even when it seems like there's just noise.
So is it kind of like how Spotify recommends songs based on like what you've listened to before, but for money instead of music?
Yeah, kind of. But these models are way more complex. LSTM, for example, it's designed to remember those long-term trends, while GRU, that focuses more on recent data.
And by LSTM, that's the one that's supposed to be able to look into the future, right? I'm a little skeptical.
Well, looking into the future might be overstating it a bit. What Bi-LSTM does is analyze the data in both directions, past and future. It's not that it's actually seeing into the future, but it's using all the data it has to understand the patterns more deeply.
Okay, so it's about context. I'm following you. But this all depends on giving these AI models the right data in the first place. What did these researchers actually use to train their models? Was it just raw price charts?
They used daily closing prices for Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin from January 2018 to January 2023, all from Yahoo Finance. But it wasn't just a matter of dumping all of the data into the algorithms. They had to clean it, prepare it first.
Oh, so it's not just plug and play. Even with these fancy AI models, what kind of prep work are we talking about?
A few things. First, they had to deal with any missing data points, filling in any gaps to make sure they had a continuous set of data. Then they normalized the data, which basically means putting all the values on a common scale. That's really important because deep learning models, they can be pretty sensitive to the range of values they're dealing with. You've got Bitcoin prices in the tens of thousands and Litecoin prices in the hundreds. The model could get confused.
So normalization is like making sure all the ingredients are measured out correctly before you bake a cake.
Exactly.
Makes sense. What else did they do?
Well, the next step was splitting the data into training and testing sets. They used most of the data to train the models, letting them learn all the patterns and relationships, and then they used the remaining data as a test set to see how well the models could predict prices they hadn't seen before.
So it's like giving the models a practice exam before the real deal. I like that analogy.
Yeah.
But how do you actually measure how well the models do? I mean, what makes a crypto prediction good or bad?
That's where those metrics we mentioned before come in. RMSE and MPE. They basically measure how far off the predictions were from what actually happened, from the real prices. The lower the score on those metrics, the better the prediction. It's a way to put a number on the accuracy.
Okay, lower scores are better. Now, the million-dollar question, which model won? And how well did it actually do? Did it figure out how to predict crypto prices?
The results were pretty interesting. Remember Bi-LSTM, the one that uses data from both the past and the future? It consistently did better than the other two models, and for all three of the cryptocurrencies. For Bitcoin, it got a MAP score of just 0.036.
Wow, that's a pretty tiny margin of error. So
Yeah.
does this mean we can all start using Bi-LSTM to get rich off Bitcoin?
Not so fast. While the results are pretty impressive, it's important to understand the limitations.
Okay, time for a reality check. What are we missing here?
First of all, these models are trained on historical data, which means they're good at finding patterns in the past. But the crypto market? Well, it's constantly changing. What worked yesterday might not work tomorrow.
It's like using last year's weather to predict what's going to happen this summer. You might get lucky, but it's not exactly reliable. Is that what overfitting means?
Exactly. Overfitting is when a model basically gets too focused on the data it was trained on, and then it can't handle new data very well. It's a problem in machine learning and this research. Well, it's not immune to it.
So even though Bi-LSTM seemed promising, it's not a perfect crystal ball. What else should we be careful about?
Well, remember how we were talking about Bi-LSTM in using past and future data? That's a really powerful way to analyze things. But it also brings up some tricky
Yeah,
questions.
that's the part that I'm still wrapping my head around. How can you use future data to predict anything?
Yeah.
Doesn't that mean the future's already determined? I'm not sure I'm ready to accept that yet.
Haha. Yeah, I get it. It's easy to get caught up in all the sci-fi stuff. But let's think about it this way. Bi-LSTM isn't seeing what's actually going to happen in the future. It's more like, imagine you have a puzzle and some pieces are missing. By looking at the complete picture, even if some of those pieces are from the future, within the data set, I mean, we can make better guesses about the missing parts.
Okay, so it's more about filling in gaps based on the whole pattern, not about knowing the future for sure. That makes me feel a little better, less like we're in the Matrix.
Exactly. It's about understanding the connections in the data more deeply. But even with that deeper understanding, remember what we were saying about the crypto market. It's always changing. These models, they're just tools, and they're only as good as the information they get.
Right, they can't predict black swan events or if people suddenly change their minds about a crypto. It's like that saying, past performance is not indicative of future results.
Hmm.
It's true for AI, and it's true for people who invest, too.
Couldn't agree more. The researchers even said in the paper that what they found is just a starting point. There's still so much more to look into, especially when it comes to what these models can't do.
Speaking of what they can't do, let's talk more about those limitations. We talk about overfitting, but what other things should we watch out for? Where do these AI predictions fall short?
One big problem is what's called the black box problem. These deep learning models, especially the complex ones like Bi-LSTM, they can be really hard to understand. We might see accurate predictions, but we don't always know why the model came up with that answer.
So even if the model is right, we're basically just trusting it blindly. That seems a little risky, especially with money involved.
Yeah, that's a real concern. And it's something that researchers are trying to figure out. There's this growing area called explainable AI that's all about making these models more transparent. But we're not there yet. So for now, it's important to use these predictions as a guide, not like they're always going to be true.
Good advice. Now, this paper focused on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Litecoin. Do you think these results would be the same for other cryptocurrencies? There are tons of them out there, and they're all a little different.
That's a really good question, and it's a big area for more research. The ideas behind deep learning, they apply pretty broadly. But what actually makes a cryptocurrency's price go up or down can be really different. You have to think about things like market cap, trading volume, what the community is saying about it, even the technology itself.
So there's no one solution that fits everything. Each crypto might need its own AI model for accurate predictions.
Exactly. And even then, there's always going to be some level of unpredictability. The crypto market, it's all about speculation and how people are feeling and those things. Well, they're hard to measure, even with the best algorithms.
So AI can help us understand things better,
Hmm.
but it's not going to replace human judgment completely. Sounds like we still need to be skeptical, even with all these super smart algorithms.
Absolutely. We've been talking a lot about using AI to predict prices, but that's just one part of it. What's even more interesting is how AI is being used to change the crypto world itself.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. We're not just talking about playing the market anymore. We're talking about AI actually influencing how cryptocurrency works.
Exactly. AI is a big part of why decentralized finance, or DeFi, is growing so fast. You can think of DeFi as like a separate financial system. It's built on blockchain technology, and it's supposed to be more open, transparent, and accessible.
So instead of trying to predict the price of Bitcoin, we're talking about AI helping to build the systems that Bitcoin runs on.
Exactly. AI can be used to make blockchain networks better, more efficient and secure. It can help stop fraud, which is a big worry with any kind of money. And it can even power these new types of applications called dApps. They automate complicated financial stuff.
So the future is AI, not just as a tool for people who invest in crypto, but as a core part of how the whole system works. That's pretty amazing. But are there any risks with giving AI so much power over something as important as finance?
That's a really important question. There are definitely potential benefits, but there are also some potential downsides to think about. One concern is that power could get concentrated in the wrong hands. If a few powerful AI algorithms end up controlling a lot of the DeFi ecosystem, it could create weaknesses and undermine the whole idea of decentralization.
So even though DeFi is supposed to be all about decentralization, AI could accidentally lead to a new kind of centralization. That's kind of ironic.
Yeah, it's definitely something to be aware of. Another concern is that these systems are really complex. As these AI-powered dApps get more sophisticated, they also get harder to understand and audit, which could create new opportunities for things to go wrong and for unintended consequences.
Right, if nobody really understands how these AI systems work, it's way harder to find and fix problems before they cause damage. It's like building a supercomputer that no one knows how to use. Things could go wrong really fast.
Exactly. We need really good testing, security measures, and to think about the ethics of it all. To make sure these AI-powered DeFi systems are built responsibly and in a way that will last. Transparency and accountability are key if we want people to trust these systems and prevent people from abusing them.
So it's all about balance. We want to take advantage of what AI can do to make the financial system better, but we also need to be careful and make sure these tools are used the right way.
I completely agree. We've been talking a lot about how AI is shaping DeFi, but let's not forget about the people involved in all of this. These are systems that will affect people's lives and how they make a living.
That's a great point. And it's actually what I wanted to talk about next. We've talked a lot about the technical side of things, but what about the social and ethical implications? How do we make sure that AI is used in a way that helps everyone, not just a small group of people?
That's probably the most important question of all. And it's something we're going to talk about more in the last part of our deep dive. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the show. It's been quite a ride through the world of cryptocurrency, AI, and all that's going on with decentralized finance. But before we wrap things up, let's take a minute to think about the human side of all this.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in all the technical stuff and forget that we're talking of technologies that are going to have a real impact on people's lives.
Exactly. We've talked about how AI-powered DeFi could be a good thing, more efficient markets, more transparency, and giving people who've been shut out of traditional finance a chance to participate. But what about the risks? What could go wrong if we just let these systems run wild?
Well, one thing to worry about is bias. AI models, they learn from data, right? And if that data shows existing inequalities, then the models might actually make those inequalities worse. Just imagine an AI-powered lending platform that ends up discriminating against certain borrowers, based on things like where they live or their credit history.
That would defeat the whole purpose of creating a fairer financial system. We'd just be trading one set of problems for another.
Exactly. Another concern is that jobs could be lost. As AI starts to automate more tasks in finance, there's a chance that human workers could be pushed out.
Yeah, tellers, loan officers, even financial analysts. They could all see their jobs disappear or become less important. Technological unemployment is a real thing, and we have to think about how to get ready for a future where AI is doing more of the work. Are there any solutions people are working on?
There are a few things we could try. One is to retrain people for jobs that work with AI systems. We're going to need people who can design, build, and manage these technologies, and people who can connect humans and machines.
So instead of being afraid of AI taking our jobs, we need to figure out how to work with it, use its strengths, but also make sure human skills are still valuable.
Right. Another idea is to look into things like universal basic income or other safety nets to help people who lose their jobs because of automation. These are tough problems that need careful thought and good solutions.
We need to be having these conversations now. Before AI-powered DeFi becomes so normal that it's hard to change anything, what other ethical issues should we be thinking about?
Well, there's the question of who's responsible when something goes wrong. If an AI system makes a mistake, who takes the blame? The developer? The person
Yeah.
using it? The algorithm itself? Those are tricky questions.
It's almost like we need new laws for artificial intelligence
Yeah.
to deal with these new challenges.
Yeah, and those conversations are already happening in the legal world. Another issue is the potential for manipulation. Remember, AI systems learn from data, and that data can be changed to get specific results. Imagine someone with bad intentions who trains an AI model on bad data, just so they can manipulate the crypto market and make money for themselves.
That sounds dangerous. It would destroy people's trust in the whole system.
Absolutely. That's why transparency and the ability to audit these AI-powered DeFi systems are so important. We have to be able to understand how they work, see how they make decisions, and find any weak spots.
So it's not just about the technology itself. It's about the ethical rules we create around it.
Exactly. We
Hmm.
have to make sure that AI-powered DeFi is developed and used in a way that's ethical, in a way that aligns with our values, and in a way that benefits everyone.
Well, that's a great point to end on. We've talked about a lot today, from the nitty-gritty of deep learning to the big picture of AI in finance and beyond. What are your final thoughts for our listeners?
I think the main thing to remember is that AI has the potential to completely change finance in both good and bad ways. It's up to us to guide this technology and make sure it's used ethically, transparently, and in a way that benefits everyone.
That's a perfect way to put it. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into cryptocurrency, AI, and the future of finance. Keep asking questions, keep challenging what you hear, and be a part of the conversation that's shaping the future. Until next time, stay curious.